The war in Ukraine has entered a new phase. After months of absorbing a brutal Russian assault, Ukraine is now taking the fight to the enemy. Recent Ukrainian strikes on Russian territory mark a significant escalation in the conflict. These attacks, utilizing long-range drones and missiles, target key military infrastructure deep inside Russia. This includes air bases, logistics hubs, and command centers. The message is clear: Ukraine will not be confined to defending its own borders. Russia's response has been swift and furious. Waves of missile attacks have rained down on Ukrainian cities, targeting civilian infrastructure and causing widespread power outages. These strikes, condemned by the international community as war crimes, are a desperate attempt to break the Ukrainian people's will to resist. However, the Kremlin's indiscriminate attacks seem only to strengthen Ukraine's resolve. The Ukrainian government, while not officially claiming responsibility for the strikes, frames them as a legitimate response to Russian aggression. They argue that Russia's invasion has left them with no choice but to target military assets on Russian soil. This new phase of the war raises the stakes considerably. It also forces the international community to confront the uncomfortable reality of a protracted and unpredictable conflict. Ukraine's decision to strike targets inside Russia is a risky but calculated gamble. Militarily, it aims to degrade Russia's ability to wage war by disrupting its logistics and command and control networks. Politically, it sends a powerful message of defiance to both Russia and the West. By demonstrating its ability to hit targets deep inside Russia, Ukraine seeks to undermine the Kremlin's narrative of military dominance. It also aims to pressure Western allies to provide more advanced weaponry, including long-range missiles and fighter jets. The effectiveness of these strikes remains to be seen. While they have undoubtedly caused damage and disruption, it is unclear whether they can significantly alter the course of the war. Russia's military is vast, and its capacity for absorbing losses should not be underestimated. However, the psychological impact of these strikes is undeniable. They pierce the aura of invincibility that the Kremlin has carefully cultivated around its military. They also expose the vulnerabilities of Russia's vast territory, much of which lies within range of Ukrainian weapons. This new phase of the war carries significant risks of escalation. Russia, humiliated by Ukraine's audacity, may lash out in unpredictable ways. The Kremlin has repeatedly threatened to use tactical nuclear weapons if it perceives an existential threat. While the likelihood of such a scenario remains low, it cannot be entirely discounted. The international community must therefore tread carefully, providing Ukraine with the means to defend itself while also working to prevent a catastrophic escalation of the conflict. The international community's response to Ukraine's strikes on Russian territory has been mixed. Western governments, while publicly condemning Russia's aggression and supporting Ukraine's right to self-defense, have stopped short of explicitly endorsing these strikes. They fear that such endorsement could provoke a dangerous escalation from Russia. This delicate balancing act reflects the West's ongoing dilemma in this conflict: how to support Ukraine without triggering a wider war with Russia. Some NATO members, particularly those bordering Russia, have expressed concerns about the potential for spillover from the conflict. They worry that Ukraine's strikes on Russian territory could draw NATO into a direct confrontation with Russia. This fear is not entirely unfounded. Russia has repeatedly warned the West against supplying Ukraine with weapons, claiming that such actions make them a party to the conflict. The situation remains tense, with both sides accusing the other of escalating the conflict. Despite these concerns, Western support for Ukraine remains steadfast. Military aid continues to flow into the country, albeit not at the pace or scale that Ukraine desires. Economic sanctions on Russia are being tightened, further isolating it from the global economy. The international community is also united in its condemnation of Russia's aggression, as evidenced by the overwhelming votes in the UN General Assembly condemning the invasion. However, the question remains: how far is the West willing to go in supporting Ukraine, knowing that each escalation carries the risk of a wider war? Throughout this crisis, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has emerged as a global symbol of resistance and resilience. His impassioned speeches, delivered from the besieged capital of Kyiv, have rallied international support for Ukraine's cause. He has skillfully leveraged social media to bypass traditional diplomatic channels and appeal directly to the world's citizens, galvanizing public opinion against Russia's aggression. Zelensky's leadership has been instrumental in securing vital military and economic assistance from the West. His government's unwavering commitment to democratic values and its courageous defense of its sovereignty have resonated with Western audiences. He has consistently emphasized the shared values that bind Ukraine to the West, framing the conflict as a battle between democracy and authoritarianism, between freedom and tyranny. Beyond rallying support, Zelensky has also been a vocal advocate for accountability and justice. He has called for the creation of a special tribunal to investigate and prosecute Russian war crimes in Ukraine. He has also demanded that Russia be held responsible for the immense suffering and destruction it has inflicted upon his country. His unwavering pursuit of justice, even as his country fights for its survival, has earned him admiration and respect worldwide. The Kremlin now faces a difficult dilemma. The war in Ukraine is not going according to plan. The Russian military has suffered heavy losses and has been bogged down in a protracted and costly conflict. Ukraine's recent strikes on Russian territory have further exposed the limitations of Russia's military capabilities and have dealt a blow to its prestige. The Kremlin must now decide whether to escalate the conflict further or seek a negotiated settlement. Escalation carries significant risks. Further military setbacks could undermine Putin's grip on power and fuel domestic unrest. The West's response to escalation remains unpredictable, but it could include even harsher sanctions and increased military support for Ukraine. Moreover, the use of tactical nuclear weapons, while frequently threatened by the Kremlin, would be a desperate gamble with catastrophic consequences. A negotiated settlement, while perhaps the most rational course of action, would require significant concessions from the Kremlin. Russia would likely have to relinquish control of the territories it has occupied in Ukraine, which would be a humiliating defeat for Putin. It would also have to acknowledge the legitimacy of the Ukrainian government, something it has so far refused to do. The war in Ukraine has profound implications for the future of Europe. It has shattered the post-Cold War security order and exposed the fragility of peace on the continent. The conflict has also highlighted the West's dependence on Russian energy and the need for greater energy independence. One thing is certain: Europe will never be the same. The war has forced a fundamental reassessment of security priorities and has led to a dramatic increase in defense spending across Europe. NATO, once considered by some to be a relic of the Cold War, has been revitalized by the conflict. The war has also underscored the importance of transatlantic unity. The United States, despite its initial reluctance to get involved in another European conflict, has played a crucial role in supporting Ukraine and rallying international support against Russia. The conflict has demonstrated that the transatlantic alliance remains the bedrock of European security. The war in Ukraine is a tragedy for all involved. It is a stark reminder of the human cost of conflict and the fragility of peace. It is also a wake-up call for the West, forcing it to confront the challenges posed by a more assertive and revisionist Russia. As the conflict enters a new and unpredictable phase, one thing is clear: the world is watching, and the stakes could not be higher.